Hello everyone, and welcome to another News Coolum video. Now I apologize up front, I haven't been able to do a whole lot of content. I've been able to record a few videos, but things have been hectic. Haven't really had a lot of time to update or edit some of the videos, so I apologize for that. Hopefully things clear up in a few days or weeks, and I'll be able to start uploading some content a little bit more regularly. But in the meantime, I wanted to talk about the Chevrolet Bolt EV and the battery fire recall and the updates. So GM just recently released the update for the 2017 and 2018 Chevrolet Bolt EVs. The software update for the 2019 happened earlier, right? So we came kind of a month later for the earlier models, but I went ahead and had the update done. Now I was going to do a video on the update, and the thing is, the update itself was pretty uneventful. I drove down, had the update done. Nothing really happened. I did talk to the representative at the dealership, and they said that on occasion some of the cars were their BCM was failing with the update and they'd have to replace it. So there was actually a hardware component along with the software update. They didn't get into much about the actual battery replacements, but I have heard from some people who have had battery modules replaced. It's still really a very low number. I mean, we have to understand that even with these fires, we're talking about 0.01 to 0.02% of the total population of Bolt EVs is affected. So it's a very, very small number. There are changes to the software. This is an update. And so what I thought would be of more value than a video recounting the experience of having the update done, which, like I said, was pretty transparent, pretty easy, takes somewhere between 45 minutes and a couple of hours, just have it done. But there have been some errors that I've heard about. Like I said, the BCM sometimes are having to be replaced. And so what I wanted to do is do basically a shakedown. And this is universal for any EV owner. This isn't just about this recall. And this is something that I did with the Bolt EV early on, within a day or two of getting it actually. Stretch your legs with an EV a little bit before you go on a long trip. All of these times you hear these tragic long trips that people take where they don't know how to use the charging infrastructure. They don't know the capabilities of the car. They don't know how it reacts to highway speed driving. Well, that's on you for not, familiarizing yourself with your car. So take it on a shakedown, find out how it charges, find out how it handles freeway speed driving, all of these things. So I'm going to do a post-update shakedown. And so I charged up to 100%. I have some things I need to do, a few stores I need to visit. They're about 80 miles out. So this is kind of a common shopping cycle for me. I'll probably maybe do an easy route down to the stores, so my efficiency is going to be higher. It's maybe more scenic. And then I'll do a high-speed freeway drive on the way back, on the return. And then just see how the Bolt EV handles it. And then do a DC fast charge probably 3/4 of the way through the trip. Just to see again what my current energy level is. Did I lose energy capacity as a result of the update? Did it affect the charging profile of the battery? Am I having any issues with charging? I just got a ping from OnStar saying that my battery charge was interrupted. Now I interrupted it, and I don't know if internet's not great up here, Elon. I'm waiting on my Starlink, but yeah, the thing is, it could just be a communication error with the car, with OnStar, with poor communication. So I'm not too worried about that yet, though I have seen some people who it looks like their cars might have been bricked by the update, and they probably do need a new BCM. And then the only other thing before I get to really driving on this, and this is a criticism I was going to post in a separate video for GM. I don't know who at GM needs to know about this or hear about this, but a lot of people are criticizing this update because they don't think it's actually making substantive changes, right? In terms of, if there's a bad battery cell, they think this is just sort of saying, oh, we've done our part, and if another fire happens, oh well. I know battery cells are being replaced. I know this is happening fairly frequently. I think GM just needs to be transparent with those numbers. Let people know how many cells you're replacing. Let them know that this isn't just a software update, that you're actually doing a holistic fix to the Bolt EV and these battery fire issues and the battery cell issues. But anyway, without further ado, yeah, it's time to hit the road, because I have almost an hour and a half before I get to my first stop. So let's get going. Now, one of the things that I'm concerned about on this trip is, you know, like I said, this is a fairly routine trip for me, and my needs for an electric vehicle are a little bit different than maybe the average person, but I think they're pretty much in line with, you know, anybody who lives in a rural community or a rural area where, you know, my baseline requirement was always about 150 miles of range. This trip today actually is kind of the reason for that. Is this round trip is going to be at least 145 to 150 miles, maybe more than that. My big concern, though, is because with this shakedown, two things that I want to do is I want to draw down the battery far enough that I get to see the entire charging profile. And so if I'm DC fast charging at, you know, 3/4 of the way through the trip, I really need the battery to be below, well below 50%, maybe down to 30%, right, if possible. And then, of course, the other aspect of that, though, is I want to get it low enough that I have an accurate gauge of how much energy capacity is actually in the battery, because what I'll do is I'll look at how much energy was used, and then I'll compare that to what percentage the battery is at, right? And then you can figure out, well, you just extrapolate how much energy is actually available in the battery. I might be able to drive down the battery enough that I get a really good sense of the, you know, the whole scope of what the Bolt EV battery update did, both in terms of maybe effects to the charging profile, effects to overall usable energy capacity. So really, I'm definitely not looking to make this an efficient trip, and in fact, the less efficiently I can drive, really the more accurate of a picture it's going to paint for me. And so, you know, maybe like I said, I recommend new EV owners do a sort of shakedown of their own. But I think in this case, like for them, I would recommend doing that also to get an assessment of efficiency. In this case, I kind of already know the Bolt EV's efficiency, so that's less of a concern for me. What's more of a concern for me is just seeing the changes in usable energy, because that will inform me about my range, because I know what my efficiency is. And then, of course, any possible changes to charging or battery capacity or available energy or any of those things. So basically, I am not going to be sparing the throttle in any way. So one of the things that I'm looking for right on the energy used display, because you know, we're 60 miles in, 59.6 or whatever, but on the energy used display, I'm tracking how much kilowatt hours is being used, because this is one of the things that would get adjusted with this update. And so we're at 14 kilowatt hours used at this moment, hitting 60 miles. And so what I'm looking for is on the range estimator on the left, when it ticks down to the next notch, because basically that green bar above the 3/4 battery mark, it stays lit up until you know, it basically empties out that 5% increment. And so what I'm looking for right now is how much energy does it say is used on the energy information screen when that ticks down. Because in theory, right, you can just multiply that number by 4 to get your estimated battery capacity. Now, one of the weird things that happens, though, with the Bolt EV, or at least it happened prior to this update, is that above 25% battery, the range estimator is not very accurate, and above 50% battery, it's like wholly inaccurate. It's really, really bad, to the point that when I had that original battery energy usage update patch that was done, I guess almost 4 years ago now, or I guess 3 years ago now, where it was designed to identify bad cells. So if you had one of those bad cells where it would cause a cataclysmic battery failure, well, okay, so here we are, where it just ticked down. But anyway, yeah, when you had that cataclysmic battery failure, it would warn about it. Well, ever since that update, the battery range estimator was ridiculously inaccurate, to the point that I would go on trips and my range estimator would say I couldn't possibly make it. So, and then I would arrive with 10-20% battery left. Now, this ticked down where it said 14.3. So, just doing that math, that's a 57.2 kilowatt hours of usable battery capacity if going by that display. I'll put the corrections on the screen if I screwed up the math. But 57.2 kilowatt hours of usable energy capacity, that's actually an increase. I don't know if that's accurate, because that's actually an increase in usable battery capacity from what I had seen before, based on the energy used screen. So 14.3 kilowatt hours per 25% battery. Well, I'm going to have to monitor this. Now, I'm not going to tick down another 25% probably until I'm on the return trip, so I'll revisit that number when I see it. So, good news, bad news. The thing that I came down for isn't here. So apparently they don't have what I was looking for in stock, and it is something that I wanted to pick up. I called another store. They have it. It's only 70 miles away. So it looks like this shakedown will continue until morale improves. So let's button it back up, folks. We're heading out again. So yeah, another 70 miles, another hour or so of driving. This time I'll be able to hit the freeway and do a decent amount of 70-75 mile an hour driving. So yeah, let's get packed up and ready to head out. Yeah, as the saying goes, getting a little bit more than we bargained for on this trip. Yeah, like I said, oddly, this actually kind of works out in favor of the Bolt EV, right? In terms of doing this shakedown testing and you know, just seeing what's going on with it post update. But it also sort of speaks to some of the concerns I think a lot of people will have about EVs that don't fully understand what they're getting into. And again, it explains why, for me, who was driving a plug-in vehicle for four and a half years before I even got the Bolt EV, or before I even reserved the Bolt EV in 2016, I kind of knew this, but people who are new to plug-in vehicles, that are new to EVs, might not, and that's that you really need to overshoot when it comes to range and expectations, right? And so you'll hear a lot of experienced EV owners say this when someone's asking about what EV they should get, or maybe more importantly, what battery option they should get. You'll hear more experienced EV owners say, get the biggest battery that you can afford. And this is the kind of the reason for it is you want to make your EV owning experience as convenient as possible, and one of the ways that you do that is to reduce the amount of time that you have to fuel or charge away from home. It's one of the reasons why I am looking so closely at something like the Ford Mustang Mach-E Route 1 edition, where, you know, this trip is going to, there's no way I'm going to be able to complete this trip now with an extra 150 miles of freeway driving in the Bolt EV without stopping to charge once, right? The Mach-E Route 1 might actually have been able to do this trip on a single battery charge without having to stop once. It'd be close, but it's, you know, it's within the realm of possibility, and that's why, you know, my baseline minimum is 150 miles of range, which the Bolt EV more than exceeds. But realistically, I'd want closer to, you know, 300 miles of range, at least in my daily routine. So up here to the left, there's a Starbucks, McDonald's, the Chevron station. Yeah, there's a 3-charger charge point unit that I've actually tested out. So a lot of amenities at the stop, and those are only 50 kilowatt chargers. So you should feel free to just plug in and walk over and just grab and use whatever it is you need to use. Grab a meal, get some food, and you know, and then leave with 150 miles of range left. No big deal. So yeah, we're just stuck here at the light. But then this is the other thing that I wanted to talk about, and I'll mention it again when I stop. But the reason I want to use the charger that I want to use, that I'm targeting for use in this little shakedown, is I want to get one that's faster than 50 kilowatts. So those chargers off to the left, even if we were way lower in battery, they wouldn't work for my purpose, because I need something that actually maximizes the Bolt EV's charging rate. And so with that, what it will allow me to do is see if there were any significant changes, because the Bolt EV already charges faster than those 50 kilowatt Tritium chargers can provide. And so what I need is something that goes beyond what the Bolt EV is capable of, so that I know what changed with the Bolt EV. I need something that exceeds the Bolt EV's charging capabilities, essentially. So I'm not expecting any changes in the Bolt EV's charging rate, but you never know. Now that I'm doing 70 plus miles an hour, I'll be able to chew through battery a little bit faster, and then we'll be able to see what that total energy used is. Yeah, we're up to almost 97 degrees right now. Oh, and it just ticked down, and it's 28.2 kilowatt hours used. So that's a little bit easier math. So 56.4. And so this is actually kind of explaining what I was talking about, though. I think the available energy, you're going to see that get more accurate the further down in the battery you go. So now already just going from 75% to 50%, we've seen about a 1 kilowatt hour reduction in available usable energy based on estimates, right? So it's already getting more accurate. All right, well, interestingly, I'm going to need to charge up maybe a little bit earlier than I anticipated, because my planned next shopping stop, it turns out that it's actually going to be 75 miles away. And I only have about 50 miles of estimated range right now. Even the minimum range is 43. Even the maximum range on display right now is 64 degrees, or is 64 miles. So I'm going to fall short either way. At 70 miles an hour, it's going to be, there's no way I'm going to be able to make better than that estimated range. So yeah, the map right now lists it as 71 miles exactly, which just a sort of rule of thumb that I use for the Bolt EV is at freeway speeds, you can expect to get about 50 miles for every 25% battery, more or less, pretty close to that. And it looks like I would be pushing way past that at this point. I want to use a faster than 50 kilowatt chargers, and those are still somewhat rare, so I need to actually plan out my stop a little bit. Okay, Google, charging stations. Alright, so it looks like, yeah, we're only a couple of miles from the Anderson Electrify America charger, so I'll just go ahead and head straight there, and yeah, we'll charge up. I don't know that Google Maps always sends me down the fastest path to get there, but you know, in fact, I can't even say G's name because it thinks I'm talking about it. All right, I'm gonna go down this way, I think.
On the website cdc.gov, they say, cancer often takes years, even decades, to develop after a person gets HPV. The types of HPV that can cause genital warts are not the same as the types of HPV that can cause cancers.
Oh, Google.
There's no way to know which people who have HPV will develop cancer or other health problems. To find out more, look for the link in your Google Home or Google Assistant app.
Yes. Thank you, Google. Oh, boy. What a maroon. Anyway, so let's see, I'm nothing if not consistent, and we'll use the same charger that I've always used, or I used once before. All right, well, you know, I don't know if this sucks or if it's pretty cool. I'm charging a lot earlier than I anticipated or planned to. Unfortunately, what that means is I can't do a valid energy capacity test after this point, right? So you know, from 100% to whatever percent, I measure that one time. You start adding in energy from the charger, you'd have to try to figure out, well, what's going on one way or the other. But anyway, so I mean, I plugged in, well, at exactly 25% according to the charger. Perfect opportunity to just sit back, enjoy the air conditioning, and kind of watch the charging curve to make sure that they didn't do any fiddling. So far, it's pretty standard. 48 kilowatt right now is going into the battery. On the display, it's listing like 53, 54 kilowatts, whatever. You could probably hear the battery conditioning going. I turned the AC off so it doesn't interfere too much, but I'm going to turn that back on in a second anyway. But yeah, the max draw on the charger is close to 53, 54 kilowatts. Here into the battery is 48, 49, but pretty standard so far. But I'll know right around the 50% step down whether anything actually happened. It's kind of hard to tell exactly, but it looks like they might have actually added a charging taper to the Bolt EV's charging curve. I'll need Torque Pro to be able to verify this or validate it, and I don't have it set up or with me right now. But yeah, here I am at 55%, even though the battery started to cut off at before 50% because of how hot it was. It was like 47, 46, 47% is when that cutoff typically happens. It started to step down in terms of that charging rate, but it wasn't the full step down. It didn't look as abrupt, and you know, so I'm not sure exactly what was happening. It went from, you know, 50 down to like 49, 47, 48, down to 42, 41. You know, now we're down to like 36 kilowatts, but that's where I think my my criticism is it looks like they added a taper, but they did not preserve the ability to pull additional power from the charger. So it's not as clean or smooth or capable as the 2020 Bolt EV's charging curve, but it does look like an improvement. on the Bolt EV's previous charging curve, as long as you're not in a situation like I am where heavy battery conditioning and heavy battery cooling and air conditioning use is required. Because like I said, I would be charging faster than this under the old charging profile, even though the battery itself could only take 100 amps. So it looks like what they did was maybe restrict it still, but yeah, the charger is taking over 40 kilowatts right now, and like I said, on the display it looks like only 34 or 35 is going into the battery. So that's a little bit disappointing. I'd like to see it actually be able to charge the battery at its full pace, which appears to be, over 40 kilowatts even at 55%, instead of having to still reduce the rate because of battery conditioning. So it's good and it's bad, but I'll watch to see if there are any other sudden drop downs. The next point would of course be somewhere between 65 and 70%. If there was a sudden drop down, that's where it would occur. I saw all that I needed to see. Free complimentary charging session. That's I guess good enough on its own. But the main thing I wanted to do was just to confirm that, they did in fact add a charging taper when they did the update, and they did. And I'm going to want to test it out a little bit more. Like I said, all I really wanted to do is confirm that they did it. Now I confirmed that they did it, but I do want to test it out a little bit more because, I think there's some pluses and some minuses to it. It looks like theoretically they've improved the charging speed of the 2017 and 2018 Bolt EVs with this patch, with this update. But in actuality, it eliminates the option of drawing additional power from the charger, and not just before the step down, at any point in time. I'll have to investigate it further. Like I said, I didn't have Torque Pro with me this time, and because I got a free complimentary Electrify America charging session, I wasn't able to track the charging speed in the app in a way that I could actually map it out and display it. So just sort of a tragedy of circumstances here, but it means that I'm going to need to maybe go out of my way to map the actual charging profile on another day. So anyway, we have another 60 miles before a shopping trip, and another hour worth of driving after that. So the day is nowhere near done. Probably 2.5 hours before I get home again. So shopping in rural California. Oh well. So far, I think I've seen pretty much everything I needed to see about the update, about how the update's working. The charging taper was a nice surprise. I wish they hadn't taken the ability to overdraw from a DC fast charger away. That was one of the key perks, I think, with the Bolt EVs charging the way it was set up. But so far, no errors. I'll need to go back and check what it's listing my actual capacity as. I forgot to do that when I was in Anderson, because that will be kind of interesting to see. Just down to 25%, it won't be the most accurate because of that, but it could be a good indicator just to see what it thinks my current capacity actually is. So, and we actually have company, it looks like, at the chargers. This one might be a Polestar, so that's kind of cool. Anyway, yep. Woohoo! Polestar. Doink, 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 doink. Nice. So it's good to see more cars getting out on the road. All right, so that was another pretty typical charge session as I was in the store, and went ahead and just ended the charge about I guess 10 minutes short of 80%. But yeah, I mean, I try to make those pretty quick anyway. But it's a pretty good top up. You know, gets me more than enough to get home, and then of course, yeah, just if I'm out on the road traveling, you know, it's 150 miles basically in the amount of time that it takes just to do some basic shopping. So if I were eating a meal, sort of the same thing. So not a whole lot has changed in that regard. Like I said, I haven't really had a chance to closely monitor what's happening with the charging curve. The Electrify America app does not refresh right away, so for this, it still looks like the peak power is limited to 150 amps. So I could probably get a much clearer picture using a 150 plus amp charge point charger that will actually map out in the app the exact charging profile. So like those 125 kilowatt 7-Eleven chargers, something like that would work. Or I could maybe make a special trip down to Recargo, or make a point to stop by Recargo when I'm swinging back down to Southern California in the future. So, but in the meantime, I'm just sort of guessing based on what I've seen of the charging profile so far. It is different and not necessarily or entirely better as a result of this patch, in my opinion. Yeah, so far this shakedown is pretty much what I expected. 230 miles in, used 67 kilowatt hours. Yeah, you know, 3.4 miles per kilowatt hour, which I kind of expected after a long 75 mile an hour freeway run. So pretty much everything is going as anticipated. No hiccups, no issues activating chargers, no errors, nothing of that nature. So yeah, so far so good. All right, well, so, you know, just to sort of wrap this up on the road back in, yeah, I mean, it looks like it's going to be a final tally of about 270 miles. You know, and we're gonna arrive back with at least 50% battery left, just because of all the charging at the store when I was in shopping. So, you know, all of that is what it is. I just wanted to do a quick wrap up based on my impressions. Like I said, the actual update itself was super easy. Didn't cost anything. Just maybe an hour and a half, 2 hours of your time. Like I said, every now and then it sounds like there's gonna be a BCM that goes bad. I think you really want it to go bad during the update if you can, because that way the dealership can just replace it on the spot. Like I said, I've seen some errors that look like a couple of Bolt EV owners might have had a bad BCM and they didn't know until after the fact. You know, basically it let them go home, drive on the car for a little bit, and then bricked when they tried to charge to 100%. Some people said that might actually be part of the patch, letting you know that your battery actually might be bad, basically. And I could see that too, right? Like, because if this is happening when you charge to 100%, well, that's one of those trigger points that tells, you know, that's one of the trigger points that was causing the fires in the first place, is when the batteries are completely charged up, they're full, the pouch cells have expanded to their peak, and basically there's sort of a cascade effect and a fire as a result of it. So basically, if you have the patch done and it bricks if you charge to 100%, yeah, just take it to the dealership right away. Let them deal with it. Let them figure out if it's a BCM or if it's actually a battery module or cell that needs to be replaced. But yeah, so far, I mean, it's the Bolt EV is operating just as I expected it to. No real changes in energy capacity or efficiency or anything like that. The only thing is really that the charging profile seems to have changed a little bit. And even then, it's really, really odd. It's not exactly like the 2020 Chevrolet Bolt EV's smooth charging taper that I think was maybe just a little bit more finished. It could be that it just doesn't integrate into a 60 kilowatt hour battery pack the same way as it does a 66 kilowatt hour battery pack. So that could be part of it too. But anyway, yeah, I mean, everything seems to be fine. Like I said, I recommend, even if it has nothing to do with an update, like that, you know, I saw that Polestar 2, first one I've seen in the wild. You know, if you get a new EV, even if you're an experienced EV owner, before you take a long trip in it, before you do anything like extraordinary or out of the ordinary with it, do a shakedown. Take it out, drive it around, run it down to the point that the battery is really low. Make sure you plug in and charge. Know how the charging curve works. Know how the timing works. There are resources online. A lot of people are doing some like good YouTube content and video demonstrations of the chargers, but nothing, in my opinion, really replaces sort of hands-on experience, understanding that, hey, once you go from city driving or highway driving, getting over 4 miles to the kilowatt hour, you get up to 75 mile an hour freeway driving, and then all of a sudden your efficiency drops like a rock. Like I said, I'm going to end this trip at 3.4 miles per kilowatt hour, around that, like I said before, I got on the freeway for the first time, I was 4.3 miles per kilowatt hour. So yeah, it's a massive shift in efficiency based on driving speed. Those are the types of things that you want to know about your car, and first-hand experience will let you know them. But otherwise, I'll keep everyone updated when I actually do a true sort of charging profile assessment. I'll post that up, and maybe I'll get Torque Pro, and I'll do one of my full-on videos just tracking the charging profile from maybe 0 to 100% if I can pull it off, or pretty close to that. So anyway, I'd love to hear what you think. Have you had the update done? Are you pending the update? What year Chevrolet Bolt EV do you have, if you have one? Or did you get one of the newer ones that's not even subject to the recall, like the late 2019, 2020, or maybe you're a lucky 2022 Bolt EV EUV owner. So anyway, let us know in the comments below what your experiences have been, what you've seen. If you enjoyed this video, like and subscribe. It helps out the channel. Let me know how you like this sort of slightly different format, just sort of messing around with what's possible. And yeah, as always, thank you for watching.